going to say a few words and then release these butterflies.
So these are butterflies that I have raised from egg. Closer? Okay. These are butterflies that I found as eggs in the wild. I feed them milkweed, which is what monarch caterpillars eat. And then when they turn into butterflies, I release them back into the wild. And these came out this morning, so I thought it only fitting to bring them here. Now they're kind of anxious to go, so they're not going to fly around and be real friendly, but they will be beautiful.
Where's Sadie?
Here, you want to hold?
Charlie and Sadie.
Just hold the box.
Yes, let me get
Sadie?
Charlie and Sadie.
Oh, yes.
Charlie.
Two more.
Hurry up. Okay, quick.
Three more.
Oh, butterflies. Look, Sadie. See, here comes another one.
There it goes.
And I'd like to invite Mary O'Connor forward.
I was so excited it came out today. I mean, it was happening. There was six. I had two at home. Didn't want to get them on. Hi everyone, thank you for coming. My name is Mary and I'm a member of the Special Peace Abbey and Life Experience School. Everyone at the school helped create and take care of this memorial for peace and love. Hope you enjoy this special celebration.
Thank you, Mary. And we have a very special tradition, which is turning the rain stick. And Allison, a member of the Peace Abbey and Life Experience School, will be coming forward. And I'll grab that right now. Are you ready? Here we go. Yeah, good job. Thank you, Allison. And this event wouldn't be as memorable if I didn't include the one person who can croon a tune and sing for peace unlike anyone else at Life Experience and Peace Abbey, and that is Ian Morosky. Where is Ian? Here he comes. Okay, Ian. Ian's a member of the Life Experience community, and we always turn to him for a song or two, and he indicated that he would love to sing John Lennon's Imagine. We'll do that name after you sing, okay? Ian Morosky, ladies and gentlemen.
This is written by John Lennon.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion too. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to ask Christopher and Charlie Randa to come forward. Christopher was 9 years old when he gave a little speech when the Gandhi statue was unveiled. There were 3 generations of Gandhis here, Dan Berrigan and many of the people whose path we've been on for an awfully long time. So I'll turn this over to Chris.
Hi everybody, my name is Chris Randa and this is
Charlie.
my son Charlie Randa. And I wanted to remember a great friend of the Peace Abbey today, Barry Crimmins. This year marks the passing of Barry Crimmins. He was a legendary Boston stand-up comedian and activist for peace and social justice. And he was a true supporter of the work of the Peace Abbey. He loved this memorial and was a dear friend of my father, Louis Randa. I love comedy, and I'm in awe of anyone who can do stand-up comedy successfully. It's about the scariest thing that I can imagine. To stand up there and bare your soul, especially in the way that Barry Crimmins did, and be faced with immediate feedback from an audience, to me, is about the most terrifying thing a person can do. It's different than being a musician, where the feedback is just applause. Anyone can be polite and clap their hands, but you can't fake laughter. Not convincingly, anyways. Laughter is important. It may be among the most important things. And despite being among the most revered comics by other comics, Barry had a difficult life, especially in his childhood. It's amazing that he grew up to be a person that could laugh himself at all, let alone make roomfuls of people do it every night for decades. In addition to bringing laughter into so many people's lives, Barry also dedicated his life to making sure the events that made his own childhood so difficult didn't happen to other children. As someone who loved the Pacifist Memorial, it would make him really happy to see a bunch of children here today celebrating Gandhi. As a fan of stand-up and someone who enjoys researching the history of it, I only now really understand Barry's place in it, in comedy, and it's a big place. Even though Barry is someone I was familiar with personally throughout my whole life through his friendship with my dad, I only now really appreciate how cool that was, that they were friends, and that he supported my father's work for social justice and peace so wholeheartedly. If you're curious about the life of Barry Crimmins, I recommend you guys watch a documentary called Call Me Lucky. It's on Netflix. He's an amazing and important guy, and while it's sad that he isn't here with us today, we can call ourselves lucky that the voice of the stand-up comic remains, making us laugh and think long after they're gone. So I want to remember Barry today, and we all wish he was here. Sure. Charlie and Sadie are going to say something right now, and I don't know what that's going to be.
I don't know what I'm going to say either.
All right. Why don't you say something about how cool the Gandhi statue is?
It's cool.
Maybe later. But thank you.
Thanks, Dave. I would like to share a poem that was written by Philip Boulding, Elise and Ken Boulding's son. They performed at the Peace Abbey Cottage a few months ago, and he shared with us this beautiful poem that he had written in 2012 when the Peace Abbey had to sell the property. And it's entitled An Ode to the Peace Abbey. A candle is lit, and for a time it illuminates the darkness around us. Then it is snuffed, so that we may find rest in the communion of the night. It is lit again, and snuffed again, over and over until one day there is nothing left. The candle is gone. But that is an illusion, for a new one is being made, bigger and brighter than the one before it. Eventually it will become so enduring and bright as to ignite a flame in every heart, inspiring the recognition of the child of God in everyone, and true peace shall gently reign upon the earth. When people come here, when they come to this spot in Sherborn, in years, decades, and centuries to come, let it be known that the Peace Abbey was established on these grounds following Mother Teresa's visit to the Life Experience School in 1988. The school was located in the adjacent brick building, formerly the Dowse Library, built in 1914. And let it be known that the mission of the Peace Abbey was to administer and minister to the peace movement, to celebrate the contributions of peacemakers, and to encourage nonviolence in the major religions of the world. And let it be known that hospitality was provided to caregivers and peacemakers from throughout the world. Many came to receive the Courage of Conscience Award. Many came to find solace and peace. Some were Iraqi war-injured children and their families that were receiving medical care at Boston area hospitals. The Peace Abbey's multi-faith chapel and international programs were headquartered in the original stucco parsonage from 1988 to 2012 under the care of Peace Chaplain Dot Walsh. And let it be known that Amnesty International prisoners of conscience were provided respite upon release from imprisonment in China, Tibet, Lebanon, Israel, and the United States. And let it be known that the United Nations flag was flown at half-staff on these grounds, and that the Adhan, the Islamic prayer for peace, was broadcast publicly 5 times a day for over 22 years. And let it be known that directly behind these buildings stood the Vegan Peace Animal Sanctuary, barn and pasture that provided sanctuary, a safe haven for the many cows, pigs, sheep, and goats that escaped from a nearby slaughterhouse. These animals were lovingly cared for by Abbey volunteers and members of the Life Experience School. A flock of white pigeons that lived in the barn gracefully flew above the Abbey and Memorial throughout the day. They are invisible to us now, but as surely as we believe in the power of nonviolence, gentleness, and love, they surely take wing in our hearts. And let it be known that peacemakers from around the world visited this small plot of land as a small group of peace activists plotted their resistance to war and violence, xenophobia, racism, sexism, and hatred. In the 4 bedrooms at the Abbey Guest House stayed seekers and compassionate hearts who sought refuge and walked these hallowed grounds that hold the cremation remains of conscientious objectors. Now and forevermore, people will come here to follow in the footsteps of saints, sages, and activists, famous and humble. These grounds have been and will continue to be a place of pilgrimage for people on the path of nonviolence and peacemaking. Located adjacent to Sherborn's War Memorial, the Pacifist Memorial respectfully reminds visitors from throughout the world that both the soldier and the anti-war activist deserve to be honored together. For as together they represent humanity's efforts to address the challenge of international peace and conflict resolution. And finally, let it be known that the goal of the Peace Abbey was, in the words of the Greeks, to tame the savageness of humankind and make gentle the life of the world. I would like now to call on Lado Bujabidze to step forward. Without Lado and his late wife Shaki, none of this would happen. There would be no Courage of Conscience Award that honored over 160 people from all over the world. That wouldn't happen. This very memorial with the Gandhi statue and Emily's memorial in the back would not exist without this man. And I was so fortunate that when he immigrated from the Soviet Republic of Georgia, I got to meet him, and I got to befriend him, and I got to learn the ways of public art. Never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined that we could create something like this place, but it's only because of the mind, the heart, and the incredible hands of Lado Bujabidze. So today, he's going to speak about creating these statues. You've seen the busts that are on the tables. Most recently, he created the bust of Muhammad Ali at age 24, when he gave up his slave name and embraced Islam and said no to the war in Vietnam. Because he was a conscientious objector, I found the courage to do the same. So I'd like to turn this over to one of the most amazing people I've ever known in my life, Lado.
If I'm ready for you guys, but hello, welcome. I appreciate. Thank you very much. You like sculptures I create, statues I create, images I create. But if you ask me, this not for sculptures or images we create. We create spirit of each of you gathering here. If not you, possibly we will not be motivated with solutions to anything. You are the people who, with your heart, push us to do something about, to create memorial, to create some imagery. It's to unite it around this imagery, our thoughts and our spirit. So I want to invite Louis here and Meg. And fortunately my wife is not here with us, but we are creators of this, not me. So if not Meg and Louis, I will just be sculptor doing something else, not this memorial or another sculptures behind you, whatever you see. So these people inspire me. They has drive to reach out, each of you, and possibly thousands who cannot attend today, but they still in hearts with us. So that's this all today is about you. So I salute you. We love you all. So thank you for coming. And whatever I create, whatever we have done, that's little drop in the spirit of Gandhi's thoughts. His wide, deep thoughts which unites many pacifists and people who is for peace and air. So somewhere here, when you look, this hundreds of flags is one of small flag of my country, from where I'm coming. So, and we lost to Russia. They occupied us. They take our land, and nobody cared about this. So, if not people like you, they will get away with everything they want. So, your voice matters. And in each country representing these flags, there is small group of people who have heart, who have spirit to stand up and say something to bullies who disturb this world, the peace in earth. So we want your voice to be heard, through the statues, to the newspapers, to the pamphlets, and to the Louis creation. So that's all gathers us. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming.
If I could ask the children to come forward, if we have some little ones here. Lado is going to present the working model. When he and I and Meg talked about what the statue would look like, he first created this. And this was what had to be approved, and we envisioned it, but it began with this. And now Lado is going to hand it to the children who hopefully won't drop it. Can you do it, Charlie? Okay, both hands. There we go. Okay. Great. Great. Now we'll take this. You want to add to the speech you started with? It's nice to know that longer after I'm gone, I have 3 grown children and now 2 grandchildren, and hopefully they'll be over here mowing the lawn and adding plaques, watching people drive by. Some of them wave. Some of them wave with just one of the fingers of their hands. But I get lots of people who respond to me. And now we're going to turn to Mike Kickham, who is the organizer of the Veterans Parades, a gentle man who has a sensitivity that brought that sensitivity to this event today. The thought of honoring great pacifists in history without acknowledging the sacrifice of Sherborn residents who lost their lives would be a terrible oversight. So I called Mike and I said, is there somebody that would like to read? It's not a long list, but it dates back to the King Philip's War, of young men who gave their lives, and they're listed at the memorial. And I'm going to walk over. It's just going to take a moment to get there, and then he's going to read off the names of these individuals and the wars they fought in and lost their lives.
Good afternoon. Let me thank Lois Randa for asking me if I would be available to recognize those Sherborn individuals who gave their lives so we might enjoy our lives today. Anytime I can honor our veterans and be asked to do something such as Lewis has kindly asked me to do, I always jump at the opportunity. This is, keep in mind, veterans, non-veterans, whomever, you, me, my family, your families, all want peace. But I have an opportunity today to read the names. And before I do that, let me say, when you get a moment, come over to the statue and take a look at the redone that was completed by June 30th. The statue and surrounding monument are the centerpiece of the Sherborn Local Historic District. The Sherborn Historical Commission has been seeking funding for several years to be sure that the statue and monument is treated with the care and respect that Sherborn's most significant piece of public art deserves. The memory statue and monument, which is listed in the State Register of Historic Places, has received a matching grant from the Massachusetts Preservation Projects Fund through the Massachusetts Historical Commission. Secretary of Commonwealth William Galvin, Chairman. The work has been completed, and what is completed at this point, and it occurred on June 30th. At this time, I would like to read the names of the individuals, the veterans, who gave up their lives and the war itself. The King Philip's War, 1675 to 1676. Jonathan Wood, age 24. Queen Anne's War, 1702 to 1713. Father Rassail's War, 1722 to 1725. 13 Sherborn men served. King George's War, 1744 to 1748. Thomas Jones III, age 21. The French and Indian War. James Aston, age unknown. Hezekiah Coolidge, age 32. John Russell, age 19. Ebenezer Stratton, age 17. The Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783. Over 200 men served. Josiah Clark, age 19. Samuel Comanche, either 27 years old. Timothy Daniels, age 16. David Jonah, 18. Jonathan Holbrook, age 33. Thomas Hobbins, age unknown. Caleb Leland, age 23. Adam Morse, age 20. James Nutt, age unknown. Gershom Pratt, age 23. Nehemiah Spywood, age unknown. Amos Twitchell, 19. The War of 1812. Isaiah Woodcock, age 28. Civil War, 1861 to 1865. Rufus Babcock. Willard Gilmore, age 25. James Green, age 16. William Hill, age 20. Charles Holbrook, age 21. Charles Howard, age 24. Gil Leland, age 28. James Mann, age 27. Noiseman Jr., age 31. William Mitchell, age unknown. Theodore Pratt, age 20. Edgar Rundleft, age unknown. Avery Sylvester, age 19. Thomas Tabor, age 26. Ed Whitney, age 21. Asa Wood, age 40. George Young, age 24. Moses Coolidge, age 30. Nathan Stearns, age unknown. The Spanish-American War, 1898. Robert Douse, age 30. World War I. William Bosworth, age 23. World War II. John Cassidy, age 19. Nicholas O'Neill, age 32. George Lovell Ellsworth, Jr., age 24. The Korean War, Percy Hoffman, Jr., age 27. Thomas Mallory, age 22. The Vietnam War, Wilfred Bourgeois, age 39. John Nealon, age 22. The Middle East War, Brooks Gruber, age 34. And all who have died in the service of their country. Thank you very much. Let me just review quickly the statue. The war memorial we stand, commonly known as the Memory Statue, was made by Sears Dalen, an American sculptor. It is the only war memorial of its kind. This is the same sculptor that did the appeal to the Great Spirit at the entrance to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. This memorial was presented to the town of Sherborn in 1924 by William Bradford Homer Dowse in memory of the Sherborn residents who gave their lives. For your information, the flagpole plaques contain the names for World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and the Gulf War in 2000 when Captain Brooks passed away. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Louis. Louis.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. In hearing these names, it's clearly incumbent upon the peace movement to do all we can to not only support those in uniform, but to make sure that they're not sent off to distant places for reasons that we may not agree with. We are the loyal opposition. Sisters and brothers who lose their lives in uniform deserve all the respect and encouragement they can get on their journey, just as we do in the peace movement. This is a first. Memorials have gone by that Gandhi statue, and after today's example that Mike has presented, that we are two sides of the same coin. So I want to thank you again, Mike, for your words and sharing that.
Well, thank you for asking.
Quotes, but come on up and just we'll pass the mic from person to person.
Quite a few of us. Chief Seattle.
Sorry, Paula. Sorry, Paula.
Paul Goodman.
Oscar Romero. Stephen Biko.
George Fox.
William Strasberg.
Mother Joan. St. Clair of Assisi. St. Catherine of Siena.
Frances Kent, known lovingly as Sister Carita.
Thomas Merton.
Johnny Appleseed.
Hannah Arendt.
Michael Harrington.
Arthur Sharp. Wakefield Sharp.
David Darst.
Margaret Mead.
Rosika Schwimmer.
Krishna Murthy. Step right up.
Peggy Shermer.
Aidan Ballou. Susan V. Anthony. Stephen G. Carey. Emily Green Couch. Toyohiko Kagawa. Eberhard Arnold.
Muriel Lester.
Dorothy Day.
Ardhama Nataputa.
Muriel Rukeyser. The Peace Pilgrim. Samantha Smith. Glenn Smiley.
Lucretia Mott. Albert Schweitzer.
Mother Ann Lee.
Okay.
Albert Einstein and John Lennon.
Maura Clark. Ida Ford. Dorothy Kazel. Jean Donovan. Baroness Bertha von Suttner. Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. Martin Luther King Jr.
Jesus of Nazareth.
Mother Teresa and Jane Addams.
Abigail Kelly Foster.
Her quote, I have to point out, is right up front because it says, "Go where you are least wanted, for there you are most needed." So when we were having trouble getting this monument built, I kept reading that plaque.
Farron.
Franz Hagerstatter.
Carrie Chapman Cat.
Bertrand Russell.
Anne Frank.
Siddhartha Gautama.
Stephen G. Carey.
Maria Montessori.
Scott Nearing, Helen Nearing.
Herman Hess.
Mohandas Gandhi.
Jesse Wallace Hewen.
Elihu Burritt, Count Leo Tolstoy, Sojourner Truth, Lao Tzu, Jalai Din Rumi, and Mulford Sibley.
A.J. Musk.
St. Francis of Assisi and William Penn.
Annabelle Wolfson.
She practices. She was going to say baby Buddha. Because if you see that little statue over there, that's her best friend, and that's the baby Buddha.
Say baby.
Who's that? Papa. Who's that? Who's it?
And now the dedication of the 9 new bronze plaques. They will be honoring a school teacher, the first woman elected to Congress, 2 Quaker scholars, a Boston University professor, a poet who delivered stirring words of encouragement at an inauguration in Washington, a young college student who stood her ground before an Israeli tank, a former heavyweight boxing champion of the world, a Jesuit priest who, along with his brother, were on Nixon's enemy list, and a war resistor who refused to cooperate with his jailers. So we're going to start with the plaque honoring Betsy Sawyer. Betsy Sawyer had a dream to create the biggest book in the world for peace, and she and her students did that. And just before her passing, she had the opportunity to leave the hospital in New York and scoot over in a cab along with Allie and Kate and Charlie to see that big book at the UN before she passed. She was a dear, dear friend. Few people have inspired me along the path of peacemaking quite like her. So you can stay seated. I'm going to just bring this over, and Allie and Kate are going to read.
Once a peacemaker, always a peacemaker. You never know what the students can change their minds about the way they think about the world, if they can see how they can help create a more peaceful world. If they can inspire just one other person, then that might spread to somebody else and on to somebody else, and then we might just make a difference in the world. I believe we should always try.
Thank you, Kate. And presente. Cheryl Cookley and Walsh. and they'll be dedicating the plaque to Kenneth and Elise Boulding.
Kenneth from the top and then back into Elise.
Kenneth E. Boulding. I have often compared the peace movement to the labors of Sisyphus, who pushed the stone uphill and continually it rolls down again and we have to start all over again. But the hill is not infinite and it has a watershed, and one day the stone will roll over the watershed and we will be chasing it instead of pushing it. Kenneth.
Elise M. Boulding, Norwegian-born sociologist, scholar, author, feminist, Quaker, peace studies activist, and visionary. War is not inherent in human beings. We learn war, and we learn peace. Peace cultures thrive on visions of how things might be. There is no time left for anything but to make peace work a dimension of our every waking activity. Elise. Presente, presente, presente.
And the next will be Jeannette Rankin. Being the first woman elected to Congress, she was from Montana and voted against entry into both world wars.
Jeannette Rankin, U.S. Representative, suffragist, peace activist, reformer, first woman elected to Congress, 1880 to 1973. You can no more win a war than you can win an earthquake. As a woman, I can't go to war, and I refuse to send anyone else. Killing more people won't help matters. There can be no compromise with war. It cannot be reformed or controlled, cannot be disciplined into decency or codified into common sense. For war is the slaughter of human beings, temporarily regarded as enemies, on as large a scale as possible. Presente, presente, presente.
And Skip is going to be reading Rachel Corey's plaque.
Rachel Corey, American peace activist, poet, writer, college student, 1979 to 2003. I spend a lot of time writing about the disappointment of discovering, somewhat firsthand, the degree of evil of which we are still capable. I'm also discovering a degree of strength and a basic ability for humans to remain human in the direst of circumstances. Rachel was killed while involved in a nonviolent protest blocking the demolition of a Palestinian home in Gaza. Presente, presente, presente.
And Robert Dove will be reading Muhammad Ali's plaque.
Here are the words of the world heavyweight boxing champion and conscientious objector and civil rights and peace activist Muhammad Ali. Why should they ask me to put on a uniform and go 10,000 miles from home and drop bombs and bullets on brown people in Vietnam, while so-called Negro people in Louisville are treated like dogs and denied simple human rights? No, I'm not going 10,000 miles from home to help murder and burn another poor nation, simply to continue the domination of white slave masters of the darker people the world over. This is the day when such evils must come to an end. I have been warned that to take such a stand would cost me millions of dollars. But I have said it once, and I will say it again. The real enemy of my people is here. I will not disgrace my religion, my people, or myself by becoming the tool to enslave those who are fighting for their own justice, freedom, and equality. I have nothing to lose by standing up for my beliefs. So I'll go to jail. So what? We've been in jail for 400 years.
And Dan Dick will be reading Howard Zinn's plaque, dedicating it. Thank you, Louis.
Howard Zinn, historian, teacher, civil rights and peace activist, author, and dramatist. Civil disobedience is not our problem. Our problem is civil obedience. People are obedient all over the world in the face of poverty, starvation, stupidity, war, and cruelty. People are obedient while the jails are full of petty thieves. The grand thieves are running the country. That's our problem. Presente, presente, presente.
Nancy Scalardi will be reading Maya Angelou's plaque.
Maya Angelou, poet, author, professional dancer, civil rights, peace activist, social critic, 1928 to 2014. Quote, I am grateful for being here, for being able to think, for being able to see, for being able to taste, for appreciating love, for knowing that it exists in a world so rife with vulgarity, with brutality and violence, and yet love exists. I am grateful to know it exists. Presente, presente, presente.
Is Faith Madzar here? Did I see Faith? Is Faith here? Okay. I saved Dan Berrigan for you. Yes.
Thank you. Daniel Berrigan, Jesuit priest, poet, anti-war activist, Plowshares Movement co-founder, Christian anarchist, 1921 to 2016. Our apologies, good friends, for the fracture of good order, the burning of paper instead of children, the angering of the orderlies in the front parlor of the charnel house. We could not, so help us God, do otherwise. For we are sick at heart. Our hearts give us no rest for thinking of the land of burning children. Above from the testimony of Patent Bill 912 for burning draft files in protest of the Vietnam War in 1968. Thank you.
and Alan Burke will be dedicating Corbett Bishops.
Corbett Bishop, American bookseller and legendary pacifist abolitionist, 1906 to 1961. The authorities have the power to seize my body. That is all they can do. My spirit will be free. I'm not going to cooperate in any way, shape, or form. I was carried in here. If you hold me, you'll have to carry me out. War is wrong. I do not want any part of it. Sentenced to prison for violating the draft law during World War II, Corbett refused to cooperate with the authorities and would not move, feed, or clean himself while in the government's custody. He had to be carried in and out of court by the FBI and force-fed by his jailers. He went a total of 426 days without taking food or water voluntarily during 3 separate prison terms. Presente, presente, presente.
And now I'm going to ask Stefan Schindler, who wrote a poem about these extraordinary pacifists who we just honored. And I'll bring this up front. Stefan is a dear friend, member of our board, philosopher, poet, and big supporter of the spirit and work of the Peace Abbey and Life Experience Group.
Thank you, Lewis and Meg commissioned me to write a poem for today's event. I called it a Peacemaker's Prayer Poem. It goes like this. I know why the caged bird sings. I know why Muhammad Ali was a champion outside the ring. I know that justice over greed can win. I knew a bodhisattva named Howard Zinn. I know that freedom is a slippery slope. I know that children give us hope. I know that Daniel Berrigan sought the victory of peace over a world gone mad. So much courage and conscience he had. His deeds indeed inspire us still. To keep the faith, I know we will. I know that rainbows bless the sky. I know that Gandhi is the reason why the bells of freedom ring in the echoes of the voice of Martin Luther King. And others here today we honor too: Jeannette Rankin, Betsy Sawyer, Corbett Bishop, Kenneth and Elise Boulding, peacemakers one and all, heeding the call, standing tall for the triumph of the good that can only come from universal brother-sisterhood. They did their part, a necessary part, on the path we travel, a path with heart. Martin Buber, too, proclaimed the sanctity of I and thou. Note the courage and beauty of Emily the cow, standing watch over conscientious objectors to violence and war. Her spirit leads us to the door that is the birth of peace on earth. And yes, the saints and sages of the ages will long sing praises to the extraordinary story of Rachel Corrie. Hence we now recall that noble soul whose goal was peace. She gave her life so that war should cease. Ah, Rachel, you died too young, just barely beyond the age of 21. Your life's song just barely sung. With holy courage of conscience, you took a stance and gave your life to give peace a chance. Seeds of peace do truth and beauty grow, like the poems of Maya Angelou. And so, united by Buddha's Dharma Gate tether, we frolic in strawberry fields forever, with one who knows a love supreme, the voice resounding, I have a dream. And thus, in this wondrous sacred hoop, gathered together with hearts and minds in an unbroken loop, responding to the call, dream catchers, one and all, we celebrate the peacemakers who came our way by and by, like the Peace Abbey doves who fly so high, like rainbows that bless the sky, with grace and faith, giving thanks for the chance to serve, and thus bequeath to sacred earth and all her children the world of peace and beauty they deserve. Thank you. Om Shanti.
I would like everyone to, just for a moment, direct their attention to the stone with the words unknown civilians killed in war. For those of you that don't know its history, it is one of 5 stones. The first stone was unveiled here on the property by Muhammad Ali. A few years later, Mahabhusananda from Cambodia stood in front of the stone and asked if there was one in Washington, D.C., and I explained that there wasn't. So his suggestion was that we should take this one there, which we did, and we physically pulled it 500 miles on a cart, a caisson, through 106 communities, and it was summarily rejected by Congress and put in an impoundment lot. A few months later, we retrieved it and brought it to Georgetown University, where it spent the winter. Father McSorley, who was the director of the Peace Center, said he would hold it until we determined what we were going to do next. And what we did next was to ship it to Ireland during the marching season and pull it from Dublin to Belfast. It then spent the winter there. The following year, it went to England, and at Strawberry Fields Orphanage, the children looked after it, and we did another stone walk, and it was brought to Coventry at the Bungau Cathedral of St. Michael. That stone remains there. Another stone was cut, and it was brought from the Democratic National Convention here in Boston when John Kerry got the nomination, and George W. Bush got his second nomination in New York. Members of Peaceful Tomorrows, those who lost loved ones on that dreadful day, wanted to do their own walk, and they wanted to trace the route of the planes from Logan International into New York City at the Trade Towers. And that they did. And as we approached New York, a group of Japanese citizens, activists, asked Dot Walsh if the stone might be able to be sent to Hiroshima and Nagasaki on the 60th anniversary. And it was organized that that walk would be conducted under Dot's leadership, and that stone remains in Hiroshima. This stone here is a tangible, physical prayer that the day will come when Congress will allow it to enter Arlington National Cemetery, so that soldiers who seek healing can do so not only by visiting grave sites of their comrades, but to acknowledge the fact that 9 out of 10 people killed in war are civilians, and they need to be acknowledged for the sanity of our own military men and women. And next to that stone is another stone that Dan Berrigan dedicated, and it's for victims of violence. And each time there is a mass shooting, members of the Life Experience Group gather at that stone, read the names of those who lost their lives, and take a little wooden bead from the Peace Seeds rosaries that we have, which we have on the table over there, and we read their names. So no one needs to move. We're just going to go over there and read the names of the 5 journalists who lost their lives at the Capitol Gazette in Maryland last month.
forgive, let me so love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. St. Francis of Assisi.
And now we're going to move towards the Emily statue where there will be a very special blessing. But before we get to it, we're going to unveil another plaque that just came in. And it has a piece of art on it by the artist Peter Kennard. And Peter is the artist who created the International Anti-Nuclear Symbol. And one of our students, Eric Folan, was asked to research symbols for this plaque. And this plaque would have a description of what conscientious objectors object to. And Eric came across this image which I haven't seen in decades. And we contacted the artist and he said he'd be honored to have it included. So for those of you that would like to walk back to the statue of Emily the Cow, that's where the major ending will take place. Krishna Bhatta from the Sri Lakshmi Center will be doing a very special blessing there. So please come back. And because young people are not familiar with the concept conscientious objectors, that we, if you look this way here for me, please, this is the plaque that was that just arrived 2 days ago. And I had the experience of digging the hole with Eric Folan, one of our members. Yesterday I poured concrete, painted the pole, mounted the plaque, and it's here for all of you to appreciate. The quote is from a response that the Associate Director of the Conscientious Objector Committee in New York wrote in response to a letter in the New York Times from the head of the Selective Service who commented that conscientious objectors, well, they'll go to war. The thing is, they will select which wars they wish to go to. And Charles Museska, Jr., took issue with that and wrote a rebuttal in the New York Times, and with his permission, it's now part of this plaque. But before I unveil it, I want to share a song that many of you are familiar with by Buffy St. Marie. And being Canadian, I have a soft spot for Canada, as we all do. My generation sought asylum at our borders of our neighbors to the north. We were concerned that those who brought children with them would not be accepted, but the Canadians welcomed our generation with their children. They did not separate families, and they did not put those children in enclosures. So I think you'll appreciate the message here, and I hope it doesn't offend anybody.
For Canada, he's fighting for. He's 5'2" and he's 6'4". He fights with missiles and with spears. He's all of 31 and he's only 17. He's been a soldier for 1,000 years. He's a Catholic, a Hindu, an atheist, a Jain, a Buddhist and a Baptist and a Jew. And he knows he shouldn't kill, and he knows he always will kill. You for me, my friend, and me for you. And he's fighting for Canada, he's fighting for France, he's fighting for the USA. And he's fighting for the Russians, and he's fighting for Japan. And he thinks we'll put an end to war this way. And he's fighting for democracy, he's fighting for the Reds. He says it's for the peace of all. He's the one who you see, this is not the way we put an end to war.
Testing. The symbol is entitled Broken Missile, Peter Kennard, the artist, London, 1980. Conscientious objection. So, for the record, here is what conscientious objectors object to. We object to killing. We object to killing in the name of capitalism. We object to killing in the name of communism. And we object to killing in the name of religion. We object to being forced to register for war and killing, and we object to participating in the preparation for war and killing. We object to killing innocent civilians, and we object to killing soldiers. We object to nuclear weapons, and we object to conventional weapons. When war comes, many of us will perform peaceful alternative service. Many of us will go to jail rather than compromise deeply held beliefs. But we will not fight. We will not kill. Charles Maresca, Jr., Associate Director of the National Interreligious Service Board for Conscientious Objectors, August 29th, 1987. Thank you for bearing with me with that. And now, we're going to turn over the ceremony to Meg and Paul Waldo, who will speak briefly about Emily, and then we'll have the Sacred Cow blessing to conclude our ceremony.
Well, it's such an honor to have a chance to talk about Emily, who we had the honor of caring for. Her story began in 1995. And raise your hands if you knew Emily. Those of you who, oh my goodness, Emily, she had just so many friends and so many people who were inspired by her story. As some of you know and others may not know, she escaped from a slaughterhouse in Hopkinton, Massachusetts back in November of 1995. And luckily we heard about her plight. There were people who were trying to find ways to save her, leaving food out for her. She ran with a herd of deer, and she also jumped over a 5-foot gate. She was very lucky that she was only 2 years old when she sent to slaughter. Not that she was lucky, but she was lucky that she was young enough that she was able to clear a 5-foot gate when the workers took a lunch break. The people who lived in Hopkinton said that they saw her often running with a herd of deer. I think the deer helped her learn to forage for food. And she stayed on the lam, as they called it, for 40 days and 40 nights. And after Lewis and I heard about her, we were just determined to find a way that we could give her a home. We had the barn here with 2 horses and our goat. We had never had a cow. We had taken in other rescue animals, but not farm animals. But we talked to all the students at the Life Experience School, and we decided we had to do something. So luckily, we offered to pay for Emily. She was worth $500 in hamburger. The slaughterhouse said they would reduce her price to $250, and when we got there about 3 days before Christmas, they said, if you give us $1, you can have her, but you've got to figure out how to catch her. So we enlisted the help of some local people who knew cows. They brought a trailer down to the field. She was hiding on a piece of property in Hopkinton where they grew food for the needy. And that food produce primarily went to shelters in the area for people who needed food. So she found a very fitting place to hide. And luckily, we earned her trust over about 3 days. And were able to get her into a trailer on Christmas Eve. And I'll never, ever, ever forget Lewis was driving the trailer and I was following behind, and our 3 children, Mikey and Abbey and Chris, were in the car with me. And we came around this corner and slowed down to pull into the driveway, and we're right behind her, and Emily stuck her head out the window of the trailer and made eye contact with that Gandhi statue. And at that moment, I believed and knew that we were bringing a sacred cow to this property. And the mysticism and incredible synchronicity just was something that we never really got over. The students at the Life Experience School helped care for her. She lived here as an ambassador for animals until 2003. Unfortunately, she had bovine leukemia virus, which is not uncommon for cows. Oftentimes they go to slaughter, and that's never known about them. But she passed away. Before she passed away, actually, she went to Tufts Veterinary Hospital. They wanted to try some experimental procedures on her. We decided that wasn't fair to her. We didn't want to put her through that, and brought her back here on the grounds of the Peace Abbey to be loved and just cared for until the time came when she was to pass on. And Krishna Bhatta, who we are so honored to have you with us today, he came and blessed Emily. We had her down in the field behind the barn, and she was very sick. Lewis was medicating her and keeping her free from pain with injections that the Tufts vets had given us. And he performed an amazing, beautiful ceremony, which Emily knew. She recognized it. It was in a way like it was familiar to her, and she understood your ceremony, and it was one of the most profound things I think we've ever witnessed. And she passed away, I don't know, 3 or 4 days later, I guess, and is buried here on this spot. And as you can see, many people come to visit. It's amazing to see what's left at her footprint. Sometimes we find things between her toes. So anyway, I'd like to turn the ceremony over to Krishna Bhatta. Anything else? Oh, Paul, absolutely. Where is Paul? Here, why don't you introduce Paul?
Paul Waldo, a dear friend, lives here in Sherborn, professor at Harvard in animal rights, and has recently been commissioned as a Peace Abbey chaplain. So he'll be performing wedding ceremonies on behalf of our organization. Paul?
First of all, thank you for coming. It's nice to see friends. I speak all over the world, but I'm more nervous now than at any other point. I want to say something about Emily's invitations to us about peace. All of us who attend the memorial are only too familiar with the need for peace in our times. It's natural to seek a path to peace, but in the spirit of Thich Nhat Hanh, the wonderfully productive, insightful Zen Buddhist master, let me suggest there is no path to peace, and that's because peace is the path. And every choice we make, including our next choice of speaking with another human or choosing to buy products that don't do harm to any kind of animal, human or otherwise, can be a celebration of the world in which we seek to live. We can, in other words, with every act, invite peace into the world, a peace of the kind we can share with so many other forms of life. It takes a special kind of courage, namely the courage to stay in the present moment, the courage to stay intentional and generous, the courage to affirm our larger, more than human community. Emily invited us in the past with her life to see this beautiful possibility. Today, again, she invites us constantly to memorialize how possible that world is for us. Through our celebration of her courage and persistence, she companions us still, reminding us of our constant, inevitable, mysterious presence in a more than human world. Of course, we will at times be distracted from this extraordinary feature of our daily lives, and no doubt we will at times forsake this larger, more than human community for self-interest and distraction. But look around here. Come home to the fact that we are citizens in a more than human world full of courageous spirits like Emily, like Louis, like Meg, like so many of the people here. And, of course, each one of us as an individual carries that forward. In this home, every act we choose from this moment forward, every act can be a celebration of the peaceful world we all seek to build for our families, our local communities, and the larger Earth community that is our truest self. Thank you.
And now I'd like to turn to Krishna Bhatta.
संकीर्तनम गोविंद गोविंद जानकीकांत स्मरणम जय जय प्रजाभ्याः परिपालयन्तां मार्गेण महिं महिषाः गो सज्जनं सुखिनो भवन्तु काले वर्षतु पर्जन्य पृथिवी सस्यशालिनी लोकानन्तु सन्तु निर्भया पुत्रा पुत्रिणः सन्तु पुत्रिणः सन्तु अधरा सदना सन्तु जीवन्तु शरदः शतं श्रीरङ्गमङ्गलं करुणानि मासन्तु
Could everyone just, if they would like to, step forward around Emily? Margot was Emily's second. If anyone would like to come and throw some flowers at
While you're throwing your flowers and placing your flowers around Emily, I'd like to read a prayer that I wrote for her a long time ago. The Emily Prayer. Dearest Emily, patron mother of all animals, both living and deceased, we ask that you help and guide us as we walk through life following your gentle and compassionate example. For those who struggle with a vegetarian lifestyle, give them the courage to take one day at a time, remembering your courage in escaping the slaughterhouse. For those who seek to follow the path of nonviolence, help them to see all beings as their brothers and sisters in the circle of love, just as you did. For all of us, Emily, continue to heal the wounds and sufferings not only that we inflict, but also those that are inflicted upon us. And in our final hour, help us to pass on in peace, knowing that our lives have made a difference in this world. Amen.
सहना भवते सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ.
Thank you, Christian. Well, that concludes our Peace Day. I'm so touched by the numbers that showed up. We weren't sure that we'd have more than a dozen. And I can see that those who are connected to the Peace Abbey know that it continues with its work. We have a beautiful little Peace Abbey cottage in Millis, which is on the grounds of the Life Experience School. We continue to give the Courage of Conscience Award. As you've seen, plaques continue to be added. And we hope we can continue to see you and call us to any event that you're going to so we can be supportive. I love being surrounded by peace activists, and you folks represent the most important people on our journey. Have a wonderful day. I want to thank everyone that made contributions to help pay for those plaques. We received dozens of online contributions and checks that have come in the mail. If folks that haven't contributed might wish to, you can just visit our website. Thank you. What a day. I'll always remember this day shared in such love for Gandhi's message, the message of our new 9 members who are being honored here, and Emily the cow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.